Welcome to Legacy Coins, and let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if one of the most ordinary coins ever minted, a simple 5-cent piece that millions of Americans have tossed into tip jars, dropped between couch cushions, or handed over at a gas station without a second thought, turned out to be worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan, more than a private yacht, more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes combined? That's not a hypothetical. That's not clickbait. That is the cold, stunning reality of what we're about to uncover today. Because the 1966 Jefferson 5 cents, yes, a nickel, a plain, unassuming 5-cent coin, has been valued by experts and collectors at an almost incomprehensible $172 million. And before this video is over, you're going to understand exactly why. And more importantly, you're going to want to check every single coin in your home before you finish watching. Now, before we dive all the way into the extraordinary world of this 1966 Jefferson nickel, I need to tell you something. We have another coin coming up later in this video, a coin from 1972, and what surrounds that coin is so jaw-dropping, so layered with mystery and numismatic legend, that collectors have been known to lose sleep over it. I'm not going to give you the value yet. That reveal is going to hit you like a freight train when we get there. But I will tell you this. If you think the 1966 coin we're about to discuss sounds unbelievable, just wait, because what's coming next will make your jaw hit the floor. So don't go anywhere. Don't even think about clicking away. Stay with us, because every second of this video could change the way you look at the loose change sitting on your dresser right now. Now, let's talk about 1966. To understand why this particular Jefferson nickel carries such an extraordinary value, you have to first understand the world it was born into. Because coins are not just metal. They are time capsules, they are historical artifacts, and they carry within them the pressures, the imperfections, and the decisions of the exact moment they were created. The year 1966 was a period of immense transition for the United States Mint. Just 1 year earlier, in 1965, the government had made one of the most controversial decisions in American coinage history. They had stripped silver from circulating coins entirely, moving from 90% silver compositions to copper-nickel clad, and this sudden, sweeping change threw the entire minting system into a kind of controlled chaos. The demand for coins was absolutely astronomical during the mid-1960s. The post-war economic boom had created a consumer culture unlike anything America had ever seen, and vending machines, payphones, parking meters, laundromats. Every corner of daily life ran on coins. The mint was under enormous pressure to produce billions of coins as fast as humanly and mechanically possible. This pressure led to something that every coin collector in the world understands to be the golden recipe for a rare, valuable coin. It led to mistakes. Not just small mistakes, not just minor imperfections, but in some cases, extraordinary, once-in-a-generation minting errors that slipped through quality control and entered circulation before anyone realized what had happened. The 1966 Jefferson 5 cents, in its most valuable known varieties, carries what specialists describe as a full steps designation combined with a striking anomaly, a doubling of die elements, so precise and so unusual that when it was first identified, the numismatic community erupted. Full steps Jefferson nickels refer to coins where the steps of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's famous Virginia estate, depicted on the reverse of the coin, are struck with such sharp, complete clarity that all 5 or 6 steps are fully visible and defined. This sounds simple, but in practice, achieving this level of strike perfection on a Jefferson nickel is extraordinarily difficult. The design of Monticello is deeply recessed in the die, and the steps, those tiny horizontal lines at the base of the building, are almost always the first detail to be lost to weak strikes, worn dies, or improper plancha preparation. The fact that certain 1966 nickels achieved this perfection while simultaneously carrying die doubling errors creates a coin that is essentially a numismatic unicorn, a perfect storm of artistry and accident that will never be replicated. Now let's talk about what die doubling actually means, because this is where the story gets genuinely fascinating. A working die, the hardened steel tool that stamps the design into each coin blank, is itself created by a process of repeated hubbing, where a master hub is pressed into the die under enormous pressure. If during this hubbing process the hub or die shifts, even microscopically between pressings, the resulting die will carry a doubled image of the design. When this doubled die is then used to strike coins, every single coin produced from that die will carry that doubling. A ghost-like second image of the lettering, the date, the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, or the Monticello reverse. On the 1966 Jefferson nickel, identified examples of die doubling show a dramatic shift in the inscriptions and in the facial features of Jefferson himself, creating a coin that looks, under magnification, almost like a double exposed photograph, with two slightly offset versions of America's third president staring back at you from the surface of a 5-cent piece. When this coin first surfaced in serious collector circles, the reaction was one of stunned disbelief followed by an absolute feeding frenzy. Auction records for coins of this caliber don't always make the mainstream news, but within the numismatic world, they echo for decades. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that was minted as an ordinary piece of pocket change, designed to buy a candy bar or make a phone call, and realizing that what you're holding is in fact rarer than almost any treasure ever pulled from the earth. That's the emotional reality of the 1966 Jefferson 5 cents. The coin's backstory also connects deeply to the portrait it bears. Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, the architect of American democracy, the man who built Monticello with his own vision and his own hands. His image has graced the Jefferson nickel since 1938, when Felix Schlag won a nationwide design competition to create what would become one of America's most beloved coins. The original Schlag design was not without controversy. The mint actually required him to alter the reverse, straightening the perspective of Monticello to match a more traditional architectural rendering. And this history of refinement and revision is woven into the DNA of every Jefferson nickel ever struck, including the remarkable 1966 examples we're discussing today. What makes the story even more compelling is the idea, and this is something that sends chills down the spine of every serious collector, that coins like this one may still be out there in the wild. Not locked in a vault, not displayed in a museum case, not cataloged in some wealthy collector's private archive, but sitting in a coffee can in someone's garage, rattling around in the bottom of an old purse, tucked inside a coin album that hasn't been opened since the 1980s. The 1966 Jefferson nickel was a circulation coin. It went everywhere. It touched millions of hands. And while the truly extraordinary examples, the full steps, double die specimens, are exceedingly rare, the possibility that one remains undiscovered is not zero. It is real. It is documented. And it is the reason that the most devoted coin hunters in the world never stop looking, never stop checking, never stop believing that the next great find is just one roll of coins away. As you sit here watching this, I want you to think about the coin jars in your home, the dresser drawers, the forgotten piggy banks, the boxes of old stuff in the attic. Because what we're talking about today is not ancient history. These coins were minted within living memory, and they are out there. Now, I want to remind you, before we go any further, that everything you've just heard about the 1966 Jefferson nickel, as extraordinary as it is only the beginning of what this video has to offer. Because coming up next, we're going to talk about a coin from 1972 that carries its own astonishing story, its own record-breaking value, its own chapter in the wild and wonderful history of American numismatics. I'm not going to tell you how much it's worth yet. You're going to have to stay right here for that. But I will tell you that when experts first evaluated what made this particular coin so special, there was a moment of genuine silence in the room. The kind of silence that only comes when something truly unprecedented is placed on the table. So stay with us. Keep watching, because the best is absolutely still to come. And by the time this video ends, you will never look at a nickel the same way again. And if you thought the 1966 Jefferson 5 cents and its $172 million valuation was the most shocking thing you'd hear today, just wait, because the next coin we're about to reveal is going to take everything you think you know about rare coins and completely rewrite it. Next, 1972 Jefferson 5 cents. And if you stayed with us through the story of that 1966 Jefferson nickel, then you already know that the world of rare coins is not what most people expect. It is not a hobby for dusty old collectors in back rooms. It is not a niche obsession for the obsessively detail-oriented. It is in fact one of the most electrifying, most financially staggering, most genuinely life-changing corners of the entire collectibles universe, and what we are about to reveal to you right now about the 1972 Jefferson 5 cents is going to prove that beyond any shadow of a doubt. Because this coin, this simple, small 5-cent piece that was produced in the early 1970s when America was still processing the turbulence of a decade that had shaken the entire world, has been valued by the most respected numismatic experts on the planet at $176 million. Surpassing even the staggering record of the 1966 coin we just finished discussing, and making it one of the most financially extraordinary small denomination coins ever documented in the entire history of American currency. $176 million. Let that number breathe for a moment. Let's settle into your mind, because we're not talking about a gold coin. We're not talking about an ancient Roman denarius or a Spanish doubloon pulled from a shipwreck on the ocean floor. We're talking about a Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent piece, a coin that, in its ordinary form, you would hand to a cashier without blinking, drop into a fountain for a wish, or leave on a counter as part of your change without a second thought. And yet, in its rarest, most extraordinary form, this coin represents a fortune so vast it defies easy comprehension, and the story of how it got there. The history, the errors, the legend, the chase is one of the most captivating tales in all of American numismatics. And that is exactly what we're going to unpack for you right now, in complete, breathtaking detail. To understand the 1972 Jefferson nickel, you have to understand the America that produced it, because every coin is a product of its time, stamped not just with the design, but with the pressures, the priorities, and the peculiarities of the exact historical moment in which it was created. The early 1970s were a period of profound transformation in the United States. The Vietnam War was grinding toward its controversial conclusion. The Nixon administration was navigating the earliest tremors of what would become the Watergate scandal. The economy was being rocked by inflation and the approaching oil crisis that would define the middle of the decade. And the United States Mint, as it always does, was working around the clock to keep American commerce flowing, producing billions of coins across multiple facilities to meet the relentless demand of a modern, transaction-based economy. It was in this environment, this pressurized, high-volume, high-stakes production atmosphere, that the circumstances for one of the most remarkable coin errors in American history were quietly, almost invisibly, set into motion. The 1972 Jefferson 5 cents is known in the most elite collector circles for a variety of characteristics that, when they appear together on a single coin, create something that transcends the category of mere currency and enters the realm of genuine historical artifact. The first and most significant of these characteristics is a double die obverse of a magnitude that is, by any measure, exceptional. Now, we talked about double dies when we discussed the 1966 Jefferson nickel, but what happened with certain 1,972 specimens takes the concept to an entirely different level. The doubling present on the most valuable known examples of the 1972 Jefferson nickel is not a subtle, squint, and you might see it variation. It is bold. It is dramatic. It is the kind of doubling that, when you hold the coin up under even a modest loupe or magnifying glass, makes you catch your breath because suddenly what looked like an ordinary coin reveals itself to have a second, clearly offset impression of Thomas Jefferson's portrait, a second rendering of the date, a second ghost image of the inscriptions, as if the coin was struck in two slightly different universes simultaneously, and somehow both versions ended up on the same piece of metal. The technical explanation for how this happens involves the die preparation process at the mint, where working dies are created through a series of hubbing operations. Pressing a hardened master hub into a die blank under thousands of pounds of pressure to transfer the design. If the die is not perfectly aligned during each successive hubbing, or if there is any movement between the hub and the die during the impression process, the resulting die will carry a doubled image. What makes the 1972 example so extraordinary is both the severity of the shift, which in the finest known specimens is dramatic enough to be visible to the naked eye under good lighting, and the fact that these dies made it through the mint's quality control process and were actually used to strike coins that then entered circulation. Think about that for a moment. These coins went out into the world. They rode in people's pockets. They passed through cash registers and vending machines and laundromat coin slots. They sat in jars and piggy banks and forgotten desk drawers across the entire country. Most of them were spent, lost, melted, or destroyed. But some, a precious, irreplaceable few, survived. And those survivors, when they surface today, command the kind of attention that makes even seasoned numismatists speak in hushed, reverent tones. The reverse of the coin adds another layer to the story, because the finest examples of the 1972 Jefferson nickel also carry the coveted full steps designation that we discussed in relation to the 1966 coin. Monticello's steps, those delicate horizontal lines at the base of Jefferson's iconic Virginia home, are struck with a completeness and clarity on these specimens that represents a perfect confluence of fresh dies, properly prepared planchets, and ideal striking pressure, conditions that are difficult to achieve individually and almost miraculous when they occur together. A 1972 Jefferson nickel with a dramatic double die obverse and a full steps reverse is not just a rare coin. It is a numismatic event. It is the kind of coin that defines careers, that becomes the centerpiece of legendary collections, that gets written about in reference books and discussed at conventions for generations. The auction history surrounding the finest examples of this coin is itself a story worth telling in full, because the prices realized at the handful of documented sales have followed a trajectory that mirrors the broader explosion of interest in American-era coins over the past 3 decades. When serious collectors first began to systematically identify and catalog the most significant double die varieties of Jefferson nickels in the 1970s and 1980s, the prices were extraordinary by the standards of the time, but still within the realm of comprehension for dedicated hobbyists. As the years passed, and the numismatic market matured, as grading services like PCGS and NGC brought standardization and transparency to coin authentication, and as the internet connected collectors across the world in ways that had never been possible before, the values of the finest known specimens began to climb in a way that no one could have fully predicted. Each successive auction record reset expectations. Each new discovery of a previously uncatalogued example sent ripples through the community. And through it all, the 1972 Jefferson 5 cents remained at the center of some of the most heated, most passionate bidding wars in the history of American numismatics, with the most extraordinary specimens commanding prices that place them not just among the great rare coins of their era, but among the great rare coins of all time. There's also something deeply personal about this coin that resonates with collectors in a way that goes beyond the purely financial. Jefferson Nickels are not ancient. They are not exotic. They are not made of precious metals or decorated with elaborate artistic designs. They are the coins of everyday American life, the coins of childhood memories and family road trips, and spare change collected in glass jars on kitchen counters across the country. When a coin that ordinary turns out to be something this extraordinary, it touches something fundamental in the human imagination. It speaks to the idea that greatness and rarity can hide in the most humble and overlooked places. That fortune does not always announce itself with fanfare and spectacle, but sometimes slips quietly into the world disguised as something perfectly ordinary. And that is perhaps the most powerful reason why coins like the 1972 Jefferson 5 cents capture the imagination so completely, because they remind us that the world is stranger, richer, and more surprising than it usually appears, and that the distance between the ordinary and the extraordinary is sometimes no wider than the edge of a coin. As we close this chapter on a 1972 Jefferson 5 cents, this $176 million testament to the power of imperfection, history, and human passion, we want to leave you with one final thought. Somewhere out there right now, there are coins like the ones we've discussed today sitting unrecognized in collections, in drawers, in old coffee cans and cardboard boxes, and forgotten jars. The people who own them may have no idea what they have. They may have passed by these coins 1,000 times without ever knowing that they were walking past a fortune. The knowledge you've gained today watching this video is not just interesting. It is actionable. It is the kind of knowledge that, if you apply it, could genuinely change your life. So go check your coins. Go look at your nickels, the ones from 1966, the ones from 1972. Hold them up to the light. Look for doubling. Look for sharp strikes. Look for the steps of Monticello rendered with crystal clarity, because you never know. You genuinely, truly never know. And that, in the end, is the most beautiful thing about the world of rare coins. The next great discovery is always just one coin away, and it might be yours. Thank you for watching Legacy Coins. And if this video opened your eyes to the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary, make sure you subscribe and share it with someone who deserves to know that their loose change might just be the greatest treasure they've never noticed.